Good afternoon. This is Becky Steinbrunner. I am honored to be your host here at the Santa Cruz Voice studio, nestled in the wonderful building of Satellite Work and Digital Media Center at 325 SoCal Avenue in Santa Cruz. I am your host here with a Community Matters program that I hope you will find of interest and that will provide you information and inspiration to get involved in local matters, because we are the people, the fourth arm of government, and it is up to us to make sure that our elected officials are doing their jobs and listening to us. I must first apologize. I had sent out last night to a regular group of listeners that Assemblymember Dawn Addis would be our guest right away here at 2 o'clock, and I have to apologize. My schedule, I wrote it wrong on my calendar. My apologies. So Assemblymember Addis will be joining us in the second hour at 3 o'clock. So please stay tuned and listen in then. And listen in this next hour as well, because we have a lot of information to share with you. I would invite you to call in and be my guest here and join the discussion. The number to call is 831-265-5050. Join the discussion. I'm going to begin this first hour with my usual thank you to Satellite Work and Digital Media Center for hosting us here in our office at 325 SoCal Avenue, Santa Cruz. That's between Ocean Street and the beautiful San Lorenzo River. It is a wonderful place, and I cannot say enough good about how clean and quiet and secure it is, and hope that you will consider renting some space here. It is available to members of the public for an hour, a day, a week, a permanent time, both as just a place to come and do some work or to have a small meeting if you need a clean, quiet, secure place for a small meeting. Excellent location. They have individual meeting rooms. They also have digital media that you can rent and do podcasts and things like that. So come check it out. It's free for you to use and try out on the first Friday of every month. But do stop in at Satellite Work and Digital Media Center, 325 SoCal Avenue. I think you will be pleased. So I want to say that I'd like to use this first hour to talk about a number of things, but with a focus on the status of the battery storage situation in Monterey County, in Santa Cruz County, and in the state of California. The fire in Moss Landing Vistra Moss 300 fire was devastating and continues to be devastating. And there is a silence that is bothering many people, especially in Santa Cruz County. Monterey County websites have more information. Assemblymember Dawn Addis's website is a plethora of information, and I encourage you to look at her website. And I'm hoping that we'll get more information from her about her very brave move to propose Assembly Bill AB 303 shortly after the disaster at Moss Landing. And the intention of that is to claw back local jurisdiction authority to permit battery energy storage systems. They're known by the acronym BESS, B-E-S-S. Sometimes I see it as ESS, just energy storage systems. I'm seeing that too. So she is very brave. She's going out on a limb because let me tell you folks, the more I research this lithium technology, the more I see the impacts of the big money that is behind it and the driver of many actions and inactions that we're seeing. The folks who were deeply affected by the Moss Landing fire that began on January 16th and went for quite a few days and then flared up again subsequently, formed a fabulous group called Never Again Moss Landing. And if any of the Never Again Moss Landing folks are listening, please do call in. We would love an update. Anyone with information or comment, please call 831-265-5050, and we'll try to get you on the air here. I'm hoping the gremlins here that sometimes come in on my technology mind here will not come today. So I did take a look at the Never Again Moss Landing website, which is fabulous. They have several actions that they have and are planning to take. Notably, coming up this Tuesday, they're going to have a protest, and I encourage all Santa Cruz residents that care about this to show up Tuesday, March 25th at noon in front of the county building at 701 Ocean Street, where they will be protesting Senator John Laird's silence in all of this. Senator Laird merely says, well, we've just got to get rid of the old stuff. That's not the issue. The issue is that the lithium is dangerous, and thermal runaway, no matter whether it's the lithium ion or the lithium iron phosphate, which the industry claims is so much safer, but is not, still has the problem with thermal runaway. There are other alternative battery technologies out there that are not even being discussed. And that needs to change. Senator Laird has been very silent on this. And so please join next Tuesday, March 25th at noon in front of the county building at 701 Ocean Street in Santa Cruz, a demonstration of the people demanding that Senator Laird become more active in this and act on the people's safety, the public safety and the environmental safety regarding the lithium ion issue. The Never Again Moss Landing group, and that includes people from Santa Cruz too. It's a broad coalition of people, spoke at the California Coastal Commission hearing in Santa Cruz last week. The group was out in the rain on Thursday and inside speaking on both Wednesday and Thursday. They presented all the ways that the battery energy storage system facilities are a danger to environment and life. I'm reading from the Never Again Moss Landing website, their updated information. The lack of industry oversight is a problem. The flaws in design and maintenance of the plant at Moss Landing and the terrible impacts on our communities. While the California Coastal Commission was not directly responsible for the battery energy storage system installation and opening at Moss Landing, the Never Again Moss Landing speakers did ask that the Commission assert authority to require increased oversight and resources prior to the issuance of any new operations permit. The Never Again Moss Landing group also met with California Coastal Commission scientific staff to press the case regarding additional requirements of Vistra, and the group made clear the belief that such requirements would be useful to communities around the world who are watching how our government agencies here in Monterey and Santa Cruz counties hold private sector plant operators accountable for the best practices in the wake of this terrible disaster. Indeed. And that brings me to the next issue, is the silence of the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors and Santa Cruz County staff. in public health and the environmental group. The agenda for next Tuesday's March 25th, 9 a.m. meeting of the Board of Supervisors is now online. You can look at that. I have to chuckle a bit here because on the front page it says that the meeting will be held at 100 West Pacific Avenue in Telluride, Colorado. We know that's a misprint, but I have to wonder how much AI is now creating our public documents. In fact, it is at, although there may be someone checking in remotely from there, I don't know. Maybe it's someone to do with one of the items on the agenda, which notably is missing any regular report from staff regarding the county's oversight and involvement in the Moss Landing fire. I and many members of the public have been asking consistently at board meetings that these regular updates be on the agenda. That's what happened after the CZU fire in 2020. Why aren't they doing that now? It seems that Santa Cruz County would like to just hide under the rug and pretend this would all go away, and that the people will just go away and forget. But we cannot allow that to happen. On the agenda, item number 10, this is the regular agenda, not the consent. Item number 10 is a public hearing to consider the 2024 General Plan Annual Report and accept and file 2 related annual reports and take related actions. I saw this report in a preview at the Santa Cruz County Housing Advisory Commission meeting that happened Wednesday. That commission, Housing Advisory Commission, was asked to essentially rubber stamp it as that, yes, we saw it. Yes, we support it. That commission had not met for 1 year. That commission had not met for 1 year because the planning department staff member in charge of it kept canceling their meetings. But here it is. They need them to have a check off the box for this report that was already on the board's agenda for next Tuesday as item number 10. And so they checked off that box very nicely and learned that they probably will be disbanded by the county administrative office in their zeal to remove many of the citizen advisory commissions. That has happened already to quite a few of them. One I've spoken about before is the County Fire Department Advisory Commission. That was disbanded. The Environmental Health Appeals Commission was disbanded. The County Fire Board, because there are a lot of changes coming up in consolidations of fire departments, they kind of, the CAO pulled that one back together under the direction, will be under the direction of Mr. Michael Beaton, who heads up General Services Department, and that oversees County Fire Department, funded by County Service Area 48. And County fire is anything outside of the regular fire jurisdictions that you may recognize: Boulder Creek, Ben Lomond, Felton, Central, Pajaro Fire District. But last night they almost voted to accept a resolution to dissolve. It was tabled for the next meeting. But county fire is large. It is basically overseen by CAL FIRE. And so this new group that this county administrative officer, Mr. Carlos Palacios, is blessing and encouraging is going to be called a group, an advisory group. And it allows them to not have to pay any attention at all to the Brown Act. They can meet without a quorum and make decisions without a quorum. There's no minimum number of members that have to be present to make a decision. And the meetings are not always have to be open to the public. assured they will notice the public, but the public doesn't always have to be able to attend. Now, if you think that's an improvement in transparency, I'd like you to call 831-265-5050. And I'm a little nervous here. I'm going to check my technology. Okay, sorry.
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now.
Sorry. Okay.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
So sorry.
Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Okay, well, it seems to be working, so if you could do me the pleasure of helping me and call in just to test and make sure that this system is working, 831-265-5050. And this is going to be very important because I want to hear your voice. I want to know what you have to think. And I want to know that this system is working. So going back to item 10 on next Tuesday's meeting, there is something in there about the county's battery energy storage system ordinance. It's coming up. It's in this report, item 10 of the general plan, as part of the updates. The county has no ordinance for these kinds of facilities. The county has identified, the County Board of Supervisors on October 29th identified and approved in concept this use of land. And right away, New Leaf Energy from Massachusetts zoomed in with the help of local Swift Consulting Group and put in an application for a battery energy storage system at 90 Minto Road in Watsonville. This would have about 300 of their essentially cargo containers filled with lithium iron phosphate batteries. It would be next to the existing PG&E substation there on Minto Road. Many studies had already been done and were submitted with this application. Some of those studies, such as the geological hazard assessment, was done in November by the county geologist, Craig Stewart. He approved it. He approved a standalone hazard in November before the Swift consultants even applied on December 17th. They filed it. On July 2024, Dudek Consultants completed a wetland stream and delineation report for the project. A little bit before that, in April, DK Engineering developed the boundary and topographic survey for the new site for New Leaf Energy. Then in November 6th, planner Matt Johnston approved a standalone biotic report for the project. This is before it was even applied for, even before the application was filed. Also on November 6th, 2024, County Planner Sidney Niyama approved a standalone archaeological report for the project. And as I said, also on November 6th, 2024, County Geologist Craig Stewart approved a standalone report for geological hazards. On December 10th, C2G Consultants, Civil Consultants of Scotts Valley, developed a stormwater control plan for the project. On December 12th, Swift Consulting filed the application that included, on December 12th there was a public meeting that was held, very little notice, and that didn't even have a time on the card. And then on December 17th, Swift Consulting filed the project application that included a health risk analysis, which only addressed diesel particulate air quality during construction, a fire emergency response plan that gives no information as to who the first responder would be. It even had that the fire department's jurisdiction was Central Fire when it is Pajaro Fire. They filed a hazardous consequences analysis, a noise study, and a decommissioning estimate. There were no neighborhood meetings results reported in the application. Nearby residents on the adjacent downwind parcel, it said, will be vacated until the BESS facility is decommissioned in 2050. These two residences, called the Gomez property, are a barn shown as nearby receptors 285 feet and 300 feet away, and also the Pajaro Valley Unified School District bus sheds and offices at the end of Grimmer Lane, which are 1,220 feet away from the proposed project. There was nothing at all reported or mentioned about the many, many homes that are closer than any of these receptors. There was nothing mentioned about the Shapiro Knolls affordable housing complex right on Minto Road. So we have to be careful here. We have to pay attention, and we have to become active. So how do you do that? Well, let me tell you. The first thing to do is to go to Assemblymember Dawn Addis's website and look at the information there that she has very thoughtfully and transparently provided for everyone, and support her AB 303. And here is why: because although New Leaf has told the county fire marshal, I learned last night, that they do not intend to take an action that is available to them legally, to go circumnavigate local authorities for approval of this project at 90 Minto Road. They could instead go to the California Energy Commission and get approval there. The New Leaf insists they would not do that. That would just be too messy, is how it was reported, because of the public resistance. Well, I never trust them. I would never trust them, and I have seen too many times that type of information is said, and you relax, and then boom, it's done. So we have to remain vigilant, folks. And the next thing you can do is call your county supervisor and demand that they have information about this project in their town hall meetings. Are they having town hall meetings? Well, 2nd District County Supervisor Kim DeSerpa just started them, and I want to thank her for that. Her first one was on St. Patrick's Day in the morning. She has 3 others coming up, and you can find those by going to doing a search for Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. Click on her photo, and her mission and her bio will come up, and at the bottom of the page are those upcoming town hall meetings, and I really want to thank her for those. Unfortunately, they're all during working hours, and I would really like to see some evening town hall meetings, and in particular I want to see one about this issue, the battery energy storage system projects, and the 3 locations that Santa Cruz County Supervisors approved on October 29th that are in the process. The only one, to my knowledge, that has a permit is the one at 90 Minto Road, but there is also a location identified on Freedom Boulevard near Aptos High School, and the 3rd one is on Paul Sweet Road, very close to Dominican Hospital. The Board of Supervisors will be considering this likely in April at their April 22nd meeting, but none of them seems to know exactly when that will be. In the follow-up actions that the board approved on October 29th, it gave the date April 25th, which is a very odd date because it's a Friday, which makes me think that I know that the county zoning administrator meets on Friday, which makes me suspicious that that's when it's going to get pushed through with this rezoning of land much of it agricultural, into areas for battery energy storage systems. And if the New Leaf people don't like what the board approves, what is to stop them from using the provisions legally allowed in Assembly Bill 205, approved by the governor, to allow them to go around having to get local approvals and instead go to the California Energy Commission, who is all on board with this. The California Energy Commission is all on board with lithium-ion battery technology and recently held a Lithium Valley Vision workshop. Lithium Valley is the term they're using for the Salton Sea area. And I think our elected officials need to hear us, and we need to have a strong voice saying a moratorium on lithium-ion battery energy storage system is what we need here. And that is exactly what a group is doing here in Santa Cruz. I invite you to attend the Monday evening meeting of that group. They decided to call themselves Safe, Clean Energy for California because their vision is to be a model for the rest of California, to demand that the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors institutes a moratorium on lithium-ion battery storage and also convenes a technical advisory panel that will include industry officials from other technologies like sodium and some other things that are available, and environmental people, regulatory policy experts who have volunteered their time and live locally, and use those recommendations to craft the battery energy storage system ordinance for Santa Cruz County. If this doesn't happen, here is what will happen, and what I'm convinced is happening. New Leaf Energy is likely working with county planning department officials, staff, and they are writing our ordinance for us. New Leaf will be buying the county and describing what they want our county to allow for these types of installations. Now, if that's what you want, give me a call. 831-265-5050. So I'm hoping that this technology is working. I'm not seeing any calls. So I hope you will call. So again, Tuesday, two things happening. The County Board of Supervisors meeting will be happening at 9 a.m. in 701 Ocean Street, 5th floor. You can participate online if you want, and those instructions are on the website. Hopefully you won't be linking into Telluride, Colorado, as the agenda here says, but do participate, and there is a section in there in item 10, about the battery energy storage ordinance that's in the works. If you want to speak right at the beginning about anything that is pertinent to the Board of Supervisors' purview, you get 2 minutes right at the beginning, and I encourage you to do that. And I encourage you to listen to what others are saying. If you're interested too, the second thing that's happening Tuesday is the Never Again Moss Landing group heading up a protest in front of 701 Ocean Street at noon. That's next Tuesday, March 25th at noon. A protest in front of the county government building about California Senator John Laird's silence in all of this battery energy mess. What is going on? I really want to again applaud Assemblymember Dawn Addis. She is brave, And I'm really looking forward to her interview in the second hour. I hope you will stay on, and we'll find out what is she hearing, what flack is she taking for her brave effort to try to keep local government's jurisdiction authority over these battery energy storage systems with her AB 303. Now, another thing I started to say that is happening and is on the schedule of the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors meeting is the scheduled item at 1:30, and that will be item number 12. Consider a report and presentation on the organizational assessment of the building permit process from a consultant called Baker Tilly, and take related actions. Interestingly, it's on there, supported by the County Administrative Office, CAO Palacios, and not the Planning Department. You have to wonder about that. If you are curious to read more about that, I encourage you to go to the website for the County Board of Supervisors, click on that and meeting materials, and you can get information there. You can get the agenda, you can get the whole packet, and you can submit comment on different items there, and I hope you will do that too. The jury is out as to whether the board really gets them. This is a new platform that the county adopted in January. I have yet to get any response from supervisors on things that I've written to using that comment portal. The thing that I don't like about it over what used to be was that it used to be you would click on an item and submit a comment and it would be posted and other people could see it too if you elected that it would go to all board members. And I really liked that because I would learn things from what other people had posted. And that is gone now. That is gone now. So, next Tuesday, County Board of Supervisors meeting, 9 a.m., and a protest, 12 noon. Protest layered silence. Give me a call if you've got something on your mind. 831-265-5050. I want to also say that my apologies to Mr. Brian Shields, representing the NorCal Carpenters Union. I had scheduled him to interview today, and today was not a good day for me. I got all mixed up in my scheduling, and Assemblymember Addis's interview date changed, and the time changed, and I got goofed up. So next week, I hope you will tune in to listen to Mr. Brian Shields and a co-worker of his from the NorCal Carpenters Union talking about what is the Carpenters Union, why are they important, what do they do, and why are they protesting up at UCSC on the campus up there. There's a lot of building going on there in the Great Meadow, as you may know it to be, and I recently saw some of the Carpenters Union people protesting up there and stopped and talked a bit. And so next week at 2 o'clock, Mr. Brian Shields will be on the telephone and we'll be talking about the Carpenters Union. And he's also going to talk a little bit about women in carpentry and how the union is really working to support women in carpentry in the labor union, the Carpentry Union. So stay tuned for that next Friday, and I think you will enjoy it. Again, if you have anything you'd like to call in about, I would appreciate you calling in and let's talk. We had a really fabulous program last Friday. The full 2 hours was dedicated to Mr. Ilya Bulajic and his sister Marta Bulajic, and then at the very end, Catalina Torres joined in the conversation, talking about what can be called nothing more than fraud and corruption happening in the city of Watsonville in terms of a homeless low barrier shelter in a parking lot area in the industrial area of Watsonville. And it is a very peculiar thing because the County of Monterey got an $8 million grant for this project. The city council members of Watsonville, only a few were told about it behind closed doors. And when it became public, and the people got wind of it, they started calling up their council members and asking, and the council members, 3 of them had no idea what was going on. Well, to make a long story short, there were fraudulent documents, complete violation of the Brown Act, lots of violations of zoning, lies on documents to the state to get the $8 million. It is shocking. If you'd like to hear that, it's posted on the Community Matters webpage, which you can find by going to santacruzvoice.com. Scroll down a little bit to current shows and scroll down a little further to Community Matters and click on that. And you can listen to it, and I urge you to do so. This is the stuff that is really disgusting, and I am so grateful to the Bulayich folks and to Catalina Torres. That brave woman had never done anything like that before, and she went door to door and got a petition up and running and presented that to the city council and thought it would make a difference, and it did not. She learned a lot about how government can and does often work, and I'm hoping that the First Amendment Coalition will take this up, because this is just disgusting. I have also got some information about the city of Watsonville adopting something called the Gateway Plan that would amend the city boundaries out to the ocean side, out beyond the ocean side of Highway 1. Some of it is, some of it isn't already in the city boundaries. A lot of it is farmland that they would gobble up and make into what was described when I went to a draft DIR meeting as a more presentable appearance from the freeway for the gateway of Watsonville. Now, what does that mean for the Redman-Hirahara House? You may know that as it looks like a haunted house out on the Riverside Drive exit, the last or the first, if whichever direction you're coming from, there on the ocean side of Highway 1. That house has such a rich history. It is a William Weeks designed building. It has, and I think we'll probably do a show about that property, and I'll try to have the Historic Resources Commission, someone from there, come in, because recently that building and the 14 acres of farmland is on the National Historic Registry because it has such rich cultural and historic value to the Pajaro Valley. And I attend Santa Cruz County Historic Resources Commission meetings regularly. I really like local history. And they've been talking about that building. They tried to get something called a demolition by neglect, and the County Board of Supervisors would not consider it. That would have required at least the owner to put a tarp on the roof and keep the water from leaking in. But the County Board of Supervisors had no interest. Well, what's happening now is with this gateway project by the city of Watsonville, there's a sudden push for the Santa Cruz County Historic Resources Commission to delist that property from the National Historic Registry, which means it can be burnt or demolished with only a simple over-the-county demolition permit. And the reason that's happening is because of this gateway project with the city. The city is firmly behind this and pushing the Historic Resources Commission. It is a very powerful commission. Very powerful commission. They are often diminished in what they are told they can do, but it is very powerful in terms of state law. And so to my shock, the commission held a meeting. I was not notified. I was on the automatic notification list, but I was not notified. And they voted to spend out of their own budget $600 to hire someone to go out and do the necessary evaluation to assist with the delisting. And they voted to do that. This is a commission that last year, or maybe it was the year before last, the commissioners had to pay out of their own pockets the money to have a table at the county history fair because there was no money in the budget. And here they are offering $600 to pay to have somebody go out and do a cursory look at the building and get it delisted from the National Historic Registry. That gives you an inkling of what's going on behind the scenes here, and I'm firmly convinced that the city of Watsonville is behind it. You're listening to Community Matters. My name is Becky Steinbrunner, and if you're trying to call in, I am sorry I do not see anyone calling in, but I hope that you will and test this system because Assemblymember Dawn Addis is going to be calling in at 3 o'clock. The number is 831-265-5050. Oops, there we go. Okay, well, let's try. I'm connecting it again here.
Ready to connect. Click Connect to show now.
Okay, here we go.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Okay, well, let's hope it's working. So, that's what I know about Watsonville city government. And again, I urge you to listen to last week's Community Matters program. It's available as a full 2-hour recording. And I was really glad that those wonderful people, Ilya Bulayich, his sister Marta Bulayich, and Catalina Torres all called in because that is a story that we all need to hear and be inspired by the bravery of Catalina Torres especially, and see what we can do to help them. The First Amendment Coalition is a group that I hope will help them, and I urge you to also contact the the Watsonville City Council members, Ari Parker and Casey Clark, who did not go along in rubber stamping the $8 million plan that Monterey County has that will bus over low barrier, and that means not screening out anybody. It could be bringing in drug activity, all kinds of criminal activity. Low barrier means no barrier. Anybody can go into this shelter, and already the people who live in that neighborhood, this is in the kind of the industrial area, in the area near Riverside Drive and Main Street area, that those people are already being terrorized with activity like this on the street. And how could their council members allow this? This is Eduardo Montesino's district, and he did nothing to help them. He refused to listen to them. But Ari Parker and Casey Clark tried. They are a small piece of that 7-member council, and I urge you to go to the next City Council meeting. I believe it's possibly March 25th in the evening, and give your support to those two council members. Listen to the program before you go. Again, that's the Community Matters Recorded program. So now I want to kind of start going back into our topic of battery energy storage systems, and read to you a little bit about what AB 303, Assemblymember Dawn Addis's bill is. She will be joining us for the second hour. AB 303, the Battery Energy Safety and Accountability Act, promotes climate justice by uplifting the voice of local Californians and creating common sense siting requirements for potentially hazardous battery energy storage system facilities. It recognizes that utility-scale battery energy storage has played an important role in meeting California's energy goals. It ensures that we do not repeat mistakes of the past that allowed industry to bypass local communities to site energy projects in sensitive areas, such as the Moss Landing area, where they caused harm to human and environmental health. It also stands firm against the federal attacks on environmental regulation. This bill does two simple things. It restores community input to the battery energy storage system permitting process and establishes reasonable setbacks for these facilities from areas such as schools, homes, hospitals, prime agricultural land, and environmentally sensitive habitat. To effectively address the climate crisis, California has invested in utility-scale energy storage system. Typically, they use multiple lithium-ion batteries to take and store energy from the grid at low demand times and release it during high demand times. According to the California Energy Commission, quote, California is a world leader in energy storage with the largest fleet of batteries, end quote. Battery energy capacity has increased 3,160% between 2018 and 2024. Excuse me, via the local permitting processes, showing that local permitting is effective. However, in 2022, the legislature introduced and passed a budget trailer bill, AB 205, in the last 72 hours of the legislative process. This bill needlessly takes away local government by giving utility-scale battery energy storage system developers the ability to seek streamlined permits via the California Energy Commission's opt-in certification program. The California Energy Commission permit overrides the local land use authority and most state permits, silencing local Californians who may have justified concerns about potentially dangerous battery energy storage system projects in their neighborhoods. Developers are currently using this California Energy Commission opt-in certification program in Fresno, Imperial, Orange, Alameda, and San Bernardino counties. Vistra Energy has publicized its plan to use the process in San Luis Obispo in April of 2025. There's a system down there, a PG&E plant that is also in their crosshairs. Although they cause toxic, out-of-control fires, utility-scale battery energy storage projects do not have siting requirements to buffer them from sensitive wildlife like endangered otters or sensitive areas such as estuaries, prime agricultural land, and I may say that fits the Minto Road apple orchard area that New Leaf is hoping to gobble up, or sensitive areas such as homes, schools, hospitals, in our case, the Paul Sweet area, and other environmental fragile systems. A series of dangerous incidents at these facilities across California has raised serious concerns about the volatility of this technology. While safety standards are being enhanced due to the risk of toxic fires that cannot be extinguished, it is clear that streamlined permitting and siting near sensitive locations and habitats is not appropriate for battery energy storage system projects. Nickel, manganese, and cobalt, and the newer lithium iron phosphate batteries are just as suspect. Although opponents of AB 303 claim the industry is trending toward the less flammable lithium iron phosphate, known as LFP batteries, the bottom line is that older and newer technology may erupt into uncontrolled fire. Now, Dawn Addis gets it. Why doesn't our county board of supervisors get it? Why are they not imposing a moratorium or even willing to consider a moratorium on lithium ion technology? I'm going to go back to reading this is from Assemblymember Addis's website, an excellent, excellent website, and I want to thank her. She has a lot of great information there. When lithium-ion batteries burn, they may also release hydrogen fluoride that, according to the Center for Disease Control, can cause death from an irregular heartbeat or fluid buildup in the lungs. Local Californians should have a voice in the siting of these potentially hazardous projects in their communities. In 2025, a fire at Vistra Energy Moss Landing burned for 6 days, blanketing the nearby estuary with toxic heavy metals. According to the University of California, UC Santa Cruz scientists, these metals may affect the endangered otters who live in the estuary and could be ingesting the metals when they lick their fur to groom. Because lithium-ion batteries become unstable when they interact with water, their fires cannot be extinguished. Fire officials must let them burn out on their own, because dousing with water can cause the fire to spread or trigger an explosion. According to the California Energy Commission, there have been 10 major battery energy storage safety incidents in the last 5 years. In January 2025, a major fire broke out at Vistra Energy's facility in Moss Landing and forced 1,500 residents to evacuate. Now, those people were all told just to go home and close their doors and windows and everything would be fine, but that was not the case. Stand by. We have someone here in the studio. Thank you, Michael. Michael Olson is here to help me out. The incident closed Highway 1, impacted local businesses, dumped toxic heavy metals into nearby otter habitat, and put prime agricultural lands and the community at risk. This was not the first fire at Moss Landing. In 2022, the PG&E Elkhorn Energy Battery Energy Storage Facility caught fire, triggering a Highway 1 closure and shelter-in-place advisory. Vistra's Energy Moss Landing facility experienced 2 prior safety incidents in 2021 and 2022. In San Diego County in 2024, fire broke out at LS Power's Gateway Energy facility, an lithium-ion battery. There is more here, but I want to say thank you to Michael Olson for joining me here in the studio. We have 30 seconds.
Well, I tried to. Yeah. There we go. I tried to call, but couldn't get through, so I came down.
Well,
Figured
thank you.
maybe I could help you work out the call-in studio.
Thank you very much, and nothing's showing here. Thank you very much, Michael. Stay tuned. We'll have Dawn Addis on in a moment. What did I do wrong?
Well, I just don't know. But it just is not there, is it?
No.
So, okay, let's hang up. And let's try to start over here.
Thank you so much.
Lead page, go away. Ready?
Ready to connect.
Connect to
Click
show.
connect
Let's
to
see.
show
I've
now.
done that 3 times during
You
the
have.
program.
Okay, let's see if we get the sound here. Connect to show.
You are connected as the
Hear it?
host.
Uh-huh.
Welcome,
Okay, you heard
host.
that before.
You are now in the host room
Yes.
and can manage your callers from the call-in studio
Let's
web
let
interface.
it run here.
Yeah.
Audio
it's
recording
pretty
is
loud.
on. Dual channel.
Spool it down.
Okay, so it says I'm on.
Okay, let's give it a try here.
Okay.
265-5050. Call. Thank you for calling. So it's nothing there. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to start from scratch here.
Okay, do you want to sit?
I think I can make it without it here.
Okay.
3 calls right here. There they are.
Oh,
Nina,
how did you find them?
because they were on this tab and you were on this tab.
Oh,
Page here. Okay, there you are. You're
okay.
there. Okay, you had a bunch of calls.
Oh, criminy.
Oh, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 calls. You were rocking out, girl. Okay, now you see what we're doing? No host connects. Please connect the host. Okay, I'm going to start over here if I can, because this is a catastrophe here.
It is.
So I'm going to do drop. Delete. Go away.
Oh, Michael. I didn't see that there was another tab up there.
Well, sometimes it just happens, Confirm and show.
So what I've really got to do is get in so I can accept Dawn
Your
Addis's
show
call.
is now offline.
Okay.
Okay, so call in studio. I'm going to do my shows. My shows. Host show. Save and start show. WebRTC. Ready?
Ready to connect.
Connect to
Click
show.
connect to show now. You are connected as the host.
But I
Welcome,
have to go
host.
over here.
You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
26550.
Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Anonymous from Thailand?
Okay, there I am. 5664209. That's me.
Somebody calling in from Thailand?
That's anonymous.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And hello, are you there? No, that's me.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
It is somebody.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, I hear you.
Hi, Becky. This is Nina
Hi,
Audino.
Nina. Hi. I am so sorry. I just got a help here showing that I needed to click on another tab that I had not seen up at the top. So I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Nina.
I heard you guys exploring that. So I'm glad I called. And if I'm in the way, and Dawn Addis is calling already, maybe I can pitch my little spiel toward the end. I can call in again.
Well,
Hello?
I'm thinking. So, Michael, this is a lady, Nina, that is organizing one of the efforts to. Oh gosh,
Okay, so we're going to start a new show here.
we're going to start a new
show.
show.
In 1 minute. Okay, so we're on here. This is now working. I'm going to make sure.
Are you still there, Nina?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Just let me know what you want me to do.
okay. Why don't you stay on?
Okay.
Because we haven't gotten anything from Assemblymember Addis yet.
Michael. farm soil.
And we're going to be on the air here in about 20 seconds, Nina, so...
15
Okay.
seconds.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm hoping Assemblymember Addis is able to get in. I'm really nervous about this.
Oh, she's good.
Hello, welcome back to Community Matters. This is Becky Steinbruner. I am honored to be your host of Community Matters, and I want to apologize because Michael Olson came in at the end and helped me with this calling option that I did not understand or see that there was another tab up at the top I needed to click. So thank you to those of you who called in and tried to help me, but I didn't see that you were there. So I am so sorry. I do not yet see our call from Assemblymember Dawn Addis, but one of the callers who did call in before is still on the line, and I would like to take your call. Nina, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. While we're waiting for Assemblymember Addis to call in, Nina, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you are doing here in Santa Cruz County to try to address this issue of toxic lithium battery energy storage. Nina, please go ahead.
Okay. So back at the end of January, my husband and I were both longtime residents of Santa Cruz County, discovered belatedly about these plans to develop 3 BESS facilities straight up the heart of Santa Cruz.
Hey, Nina.
And
Nina, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but now we have Assemblymember Addis on. Can I ask you to hold and participate in the conversation as appropriate? Or do you want to call back in?
Sure.
I really want to get Assemblymember Addis on, too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
I'll wait.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you, Becky?
Oh, thank you, Assemblymember Addis. Thank you so much. We hear you loud and clear, and my apologies for the technology issues that I seem to have currently and chronically. So thank you very much.
It happens to all of us, and it happens to the best of us. So I would say you're in good company.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. Very kind and very brave. I was reading at the end of the last hour your reasoning for Assembly Bill 303. But I would like you to first introduce yourself and talk with us about your actions regarding the fire in Moss Landing and what you are doing to help the people moving forward.
Well, I appreciate that question. I have a long record in public service. So I started as a classroom teacher. For 13 years, I taught students with special needs. And then the last 7 years of my teaching career was spent working with immigrant children and students learning English. And so really took that heart of public service into the state legislature and always vowed to uplift the voices of those most in need and uplift the voices of those that are most underserved. But before I got to the legislature, I was on the city council in Morro Bay, where there is a different battery energy storage project that had been being planned at the time with the same company, Vistra. And so when I was on the Morro Bay City Council, we heard a lot of concern from residents at that time, from 2018 to 2022, concern from residents that lithium battery storage could catch on fire, and they had huge concerns about battery energy storage like that being built next to an estuary like we have in Morro Bay and next to, neighborhoods and sensitive areas and pristine beaches like we have on the Central Coast. And so it was at that time that I started learning about Moss Landing and, found out that there was already a battery energy storage at Moss Landing. So
the largest in the world, I might add.
The largest in the world, actually, and that's a really good point. The largest in the world, and we were told through that entire process that it was state-of-the-art technology. And so, I visited Moss Landing, I toured, I saw the safety features that were put in, met with all sorts of different people. And then if you remember, during COVID around 2020, the PG&E portion of the plant caught fire. That was before I was elected. And that fire was lithium-ion batteries that are built in the newer configuration. That fire closed Highway 1 for 8 hours and caused a shelter in place. Residents were told to proactively close their doors and windows. And once that was over, people sort of, went on their business, right? Went back to their day-to-day lives. Nothing really happened from that fire. And fast forward to this more recent fire on January 16th, and now I am in the legislature, and I started getting information about what was happening at Moss Landing on Thursday night. People that I know in the area started texting photos to me and saying, hey, this is going on, want to make you aware. Some of them were viewing the fire from their living room windows and sending me those photos. And so then I got up the next day, Friday morning, went down to Moss Landing and went to Incident Command and stood at the base of those 100-foot flames. The flames were a little smaller at their peak. I believe they reached 250 feet, but we were probably there when they were about 100 foot, and the very, very dark columns of smoke. And just kept thinking to myself, how could I live with myself? How could I sleep at night if I don't take action and don't do something that is strong, that keeps our local communities as part of the process, and that makes sure that we are citing battery energy storage in a common sense way that's not going to put children and businesses, prime farm, ag land, and sensitive habitat and endangered species at risk, knowing how important our climate goals are, and knowing that last year I moved forward some very important legislation to give local communities choice around oil and gas siting in their communities, because I believe in local voices being included in the process, and I believe in climate action. But we also have to do this in a way that is safe for communities. And when we talk about green energy and clean energy, there's no way anybody could look at what's happened and call that clean energy or green energy. And so we need to be really thoughtful about how we move forward, but we also need to be bold. We need to uplift the voices of our community in, smart and strategic ways. And we need to be honest about the fact that we're going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're going to have climate action and move forward rapidly while having safety and accountability. And I believe we can do both. And AB 303, I think, hits that mark.
Yes. You're very brave, given the money behind the lithium ion battery technology industry. What has been the reaction to AB 303 that you've received?
Well, some obvious, I think you're alluding to, some people and some industries are very threatened by the legislation. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. And I think it's more about wanting to be able, developers basically wanting to be able to move forward without any kind of policy restrictions, right? I mean, that's sort of the point of development. Is to be able to move, quickly and make money while doing it. And I don't fault anybody for wanting to have a business that gets a return on investment. That's part of a thriving economy, as businesses that get a return on investment. But I do have concerns that we have launched so quickly into battery energy storage without having appropriate regulation. So, there's folks in the development world that are critical. There's, individuals that appear to be threatened by the legislation. But I would say the vast majority of people, 99% of people that I hear from, whether it's the high school students that I visited a couple weeks ago, people that live in Moss Landing, people in communities across California where battery energy storage is planned, or people across the United States. We even got a call from somebody in Europe wanting to know about the legislation. Those folks are all saying thank you so much for paying attention and doing this, intending to do this in a really thoughtful way that moves battery energy storage forward while also keeping local communities included in the process. And I will remind all of us that California has more battery energy storage than anywhere else in the United States. We've had over a 3,000% increase in battery energy storage over the last 6 or 7 years, and that has happened through local control. And so, the voices that are saying if we allow local people to have a say in the process, everything's going to come to a screeching halt, it's simply not true.
Yeah.
That's not what the facts show us has happened so far. And so I think it's important, if you are going to have projects that, number one, cannot be put out with water because water makes batteries like this less stable.
Yeah.
If you're going to have projects that could catch on fire and close schools down, if you're going to have fires that can spew heavy metals into nearby estuaries and potentially hurt the otters, which, by the way, is a species. The otters, people in Santa Cruz know this, the otters eat the urchins that are destroying our kelp forests, and we need those kelp forests to have a healthy climate. And so the otters actually are a species that we need for a healthy climate, and yet our climate solutions are spewing metals into their habitat with potentially very horrible results.
Exactly. And I'm sure you're aware of Dr. Ivano Aiello's results from San Jose State University Moss Landing Marine Lab. Do you want to talk with us a little bit about that? Have you been in touch with him?
I've seen the results from the Moss Landing Marine Lab, and highly concerning. And I know that scientists from UC Santa Cruz also very concerned about those results, because what we don't know is if the otters ingested those heavy metals and what those heavy metals might do to the otters, given that they're vertebrates.
Yeah.
So that can take a longer time to show up. And so it's a very precarious situation. Data is still being collected, and we definitely need to know more about what's happening.
Yeah, that's going to be a long study. We are so lucky that Dr. Aiello's team had been looking at those places for over a decade and had a good baseline of information. And then the results that they found by scraping just the top millimeter to 2 millimeters off the soil surface, not digging down in to get a bigger sample that would dilute the effects, was shocking. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you bring up a really good point around the data, and it's one of the reasons that local communities should continue to be included, because, they could be monitoring the soil, asking for these kinds of investigations on the front end before making decisions. I mean, like you said, it was just by chance that Moss Landing Marine Labs had been doing, these studies for such a long time, but it's not like anybody else had that kind of a background. But now that we know what we know, local communities could ask for that.
Yes, indeed. And some have. In Santa Cruz County, Supervisor Manu Koenig did ask for that to happen in the county of Santa Cruz. The results were, I don't know, I think not very conclusive. They did find very high manganese levels around, but unfortunately there's no baseline to compare them with, as opposed to what the Moss Landing Marine Lab study showed with the background. But even so, those results have not been made very public. I'm sure you've heard this, Assemblymember Addis. The information is sparse, except your website is excellent, but Santa Cruz County has not been putting out information and has not brought it back to the Board of Supervisors for regular updates and information sharing. So it is concerning and it is frustrating for the people, because we know that plume did not just stay inside Monterey County boundaries. It came over Santa Cruz County. And we're all very worried. And some people are affected adversely so. And then you bring up a very good background of the immigrants. What about the farm labor workers out there who are handling the plants, the soils, working on the strawberry plastic field cover? Are you working with farm worker groups in this arena?
I want to go back to the sharing of information.
Please.
Because it's interesting. Monterey County does have information
Yes.
on what is happening at Moss Landing, and where they placed it is under emergency. Right? It says current emergency information on their website, and I think that's the right place for it. But the reason I call that out is, everybody has accepted that this is an emergency, and so that's one of the reasons that we need local communities to have a voice in the process. If we acknowledge that a fire like this is an emergency, then local communities should be part of the planning process the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And rightly so that supervisors in Santa Cruz are asking for data and considering how they want to move forward. I'll just remind folks that regardless of what the county supervisors decide, developers can bypass that decision right now and go straight to the California Energy Commission and submit an application that way. And that is what has been happening with the Morro Bay project. So the voters in Morro Bay by 60% said, we do think battery energy storage is important for California, but citing it next to the Estero Bay estuary, citing it next to Morro Rock, the biggest tourist destination that Morro Bay has, citing it next to our fishing community, as well as Morro Strand Beach, as well as not even a mile from the high school and other residents. It's not cited appropriately. We don't think that's the right place for it. And when the community said that, Vistra said, well, too bad, we're going to go apply through the California Energy Commission. And so at this moment, even if the supervisors do all the things that people would like them to do, they don't necessarily have a voice in the process.
Yeah.
To, say, this is how this project needs to go. And so it's a very precarious position. And that's why this bill focuses on removing battery energy storage from the streamlining process and allowing local communities to continue to have a say. Because, right now Santa Cruz doesn't really have a say in if a project is cited within the county or not. So, that's one important piece. Another thing you asked about is the farm working community. And when I visited with high school students. They did an entire project, and we have their artwork on our website.
Yeah.
Because 40 or 50 students wrote letters to me.
Nice.
And I read every single one of those letters. As a former teacher, I did not want to have somebody else read those letters and just give me a briefing. I wanted to personally read those letters. And, what they were saying to me is, I was so worried. There was a horrible smell in the air. I had to stop practice. School was closed. I was worried about my sibling. One child said they were worried about a cousin with cerebral palsy and what that could do to their lungs. Another was worried about a relative and what this might do to them since they have asthma. And right there in the meeting with children, was asked the question, what's happening with farm workers? And to date, I don't believe that Vistra has taken action around folks that were working outside that day. They have done things for residents, but I don't know that they've done anything for outdoor workers. So I separately am working with United Farm Workers on a different bill that I have that is looking at heat-related illness for outdoor workers, and it's a very important community that is part of Monterey and Santa Cruz, the fabric of our community and the fabric of our economy. So I'm working on, making sure that they have safe working conditions. But this is an issue that continues to need to be addressed.
Indeed. Indeed it does. Do you have a bill number? Have you introduced that farm worker heat-related action?
Yes, I can pull it up for you while we are chatting.
Thank you.
I will find that bill and pull it. I will find the bill number. I'm much more better at bill descriptions than I am bill numbers, so my apologies.
No, my apologies. I didn't include that in our pre-question that I sent you, but I'm very happy to hear that you're taking this action, Assemblymember Addis, to address these things. I have gone to some of the Center for Farm Worker farm worker reality tours and heard from the workers that they are not allowed to go from the field by their supervisor when it's hot. They're sometimes not given a lot of the provisions that we would expect humanely to be provided. So I'm very glad that you're working on this.
Well, and California law says that they're supposed to have specific conditions when it's too hot out, and so this bill would be able to shore up making sure that we treat heat-related illnesses appropriately as a pre-assumption. If somebody gets sick and they haven't been given the appropriate accommodations, it's AB 1336.
Thank you. AB 1336. Thank you.
AB 1336, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it really is focused it's focused on heat-related injury.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go back to your wonderful legislation, AB 303, that addresses this problem that developers of the energy storage systems can go to the California Energy Commission. Are you aware of the California Energy Commission approving any of those actions?
It's a fairly new process, so just approved in 2022 as part of a end of session, what they call an end of session trailer bill, where lots of things get passed. We start to move fast and furious at the end of a 2-year session. And so the process is put in place relatively recently. There's yet to be an application approved under this process, and I believe only one, possibly 2 applications have been deemed complete. So we want to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen in the future, where particularly when you have a company that has explicitly said we don't like the local process. We're going to go to the state instead. And the community has said, we don't think this is the right site for this project. But there's also communities that do want these projects and that are permitting this process. And that's how we've had, over 3,000% growth across the state of California. And, I encourage that. If a community wants to permit a battery energy storage facility in their community, they should be able to do that. But right now, it's some of the most impacted communities in our state where developers are going to the opt-in process. When you think about Fresno, Imperial, San Bernardino, Alameda counties with underserved communities, it's my belief that those folks should have a say in the process. But we know that, some communities want to have battery energy storage, and they should have battery energy storage. And California's green energy goals necessitates that we do get these projects permitted. I believe that we will. I believe that we have. And I think the permitting process as it stands before this law was put into place was showing that it was working.
Exactly. I have asked the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors to send a letter of support as the board on supporting AB 303, and they have not. I asked Supervisor Koenig about why not, and his question was, well, how did you develop the prohibition of 3,200 feet of a sensitive receptor, that there must be that setback? He wanted to know that. Can you talk with us about that, please?
Absolutely. So, the setback is really thinking about sensitive places like homes, schools, healthcare facilities, estuaries, prime ag land. And the current setback is, a handful of feet from a property line.
It's ridiculous.
Which is, much too small.
Yes.
And when it comes to oil and gas, which also can cause disasters, there are 3,200-foot setbacks. So, I think one of the questions is how come nobody thought of this before or brought this forward with any of the other fires that we've had? We feel like this is a reasonable setback and that it is common sense that you wouldn't put these kinds of facilities so incredibly close to such sensitive areas. And I'll remind folks that the heavy metals that were found, tightest in to where this happened. 3,200 feet, is about 6/10, 3/5 of a mile. And the radius of where those metals were found tightest in to where the fire happened.
The studies that the Moss Landing Marine Lab showed is that the bullseye was about 1 mile to 2 miles away within their study area. And then there was the citizen science work that the Never Again Moss Landing folks did. And that showed 3 miles to 5 miles away. So, are you familiar with the citizen science work the Never Again Moss Landing folks did?
I'm familiar with, I know there's a variety of folks out there that are trying to gather data. The data collection is really important. The county supervisors in Monterey County, through the health department there, they had put out a survey of, for people to fill out a form detailing the health effects that they have experienced. The results of that survey are still forthcoming, so I think we need to see anecdotally what is happening. When you do science level work, when you do scientific work, there's a lot of different kinds of data that is collected. Some of it is hard data, right? It's the measurement of the metals.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is anecdotal data, which is that information that people are going to be filling out on those forms to say what happened to them. And I think we need to know, and I'm very much hoping that the county will be transparent with that survey data so that we can understand, more anecdotally the magnitude of this. I know what I heard anecdotally from kids in schools was that, they were experiencing headaches, that there were very, very strong sulfur kind of odors in the air, and that, they had to have their windows and doors closed and didn't get to go to school. I think that kind of anecdotal data is really important because it shows us the drastic effects that this has just on day-to-day life for people. And, then I was there, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I was there the first Friday and the first Saturday after the fire, so that January 17th and 18th. I went back the next week and I spoke to business owners the next week. And here's another piece of anecdotal data, is business owners said they live on very, very thin margins.
Yes.
In terms of their ability to survive. And having a 6-day closure, remember the road, Highway 1 was closed for 6 full days. Yeah. And that road closure was very damaging to local businesses. And, they'll be able to quantify those numbers. But again, the stories of real life people who had to turn employees away for those days. And we know that, food service workers don't make a lot of money. So 6 days without work for a food service worker is really a serious thing. I think we can all acknowledge that across the Central Coast. And so, citing these far enough away that local businesses won't have to close if there is an emergency is really important. And then I'll also mention the number of commuters that travel that Highway 1 corridor, but also our tourist economy in California. And I heard from businesses who said, tourists aren't wanting to come here because who wants to come here and have dinner or do whatever when this kind of disaster is going on? Fortunately, there's no disaster now, so for anyone listening, you absolutely should go visit the businesses and go to Moss Landing and enjoy yourself there. But during that time, it was very, very serious. And so that's another reason for those setbacks, is making sure that, we're not citing these in a way that it's going to close down our major commuter artery and our major, source of income, which is tourism.
Yes, indeed. And agriculture.
And agriculture, right? I mean, there were, we got a lot of questions around what was happening to the ag land there.
Fortunately, this happened in January when most of the fresh produce coming to our markets now is coming from Arizona or Mexico. But I've had many conversations with the produce managers at stores, and they're getting a lot of questions from the public too. And they're seeing the impacts of people being very concerned about buying anything that could possibly have been under that cloud of heavy metals, that the plume that happened. So we never know when a fire like this would happen. If it had happened in the summer when the strawberries were in full swing, what would be the impact? So it goes, to my mind, kind of to this lithium technology. And I really want to ask you if you would consider convening a technical panel of advisors for the state, for Monterey and Santa Cruz County, if that's where the appetite is. We have to have some people that are advising the ordinances on this issue around lithium technology. It seems to my mind that we have to, and what Santa Cruz County residents are asking is a moratorium on lithium battery energy storage systems in lieu of, and instead have more safe technology like the sodium ion technology. But we need to just put the brakes on this and have a technical panel really advise us. Would you be willing to, well, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, it's a concern heard around the world. I would say that I hear that concern all the time, that we need a moratorium and that we need to take a step back from lithium ion, and we need to rethink how we're doing things. I have called for Moss Landing to stay offline until we understand what happened in Moss Landing and that those batteries should be completely offline. Thank goodness they were finally disconnected so that they cannot reignite. But other things that are happening in this area to try to understand, what happened, why it happened, how to prevent it from ever happening again in the future is, we recently had a hearing. I sit on the Health Policy Committee, and I brought it up in that policy committee when we had a doctor there to try to get more information about what happens when lithium ion batteries burn and how that can affect victims of smoke. So we have information there. I asked about it in one of our other budget hearings when we were addressing the LA County fires and, how this has really been a problem with lithium ion batteries burning in these, huge wildfires. That's an important piece of this. When the fire happened and I was, boots on the ground that first Friday, I immediately started calling for the independent investigation along with Supervisor Church and, calling on the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, to take action. And the California Public Utilities Commission finally has released their regulations, but they were tasked with this a couple years ago, and they could have done this sooner, and I do believe that it would have helped. So the CPUC is really the agency that should be doing that convening. The California Energy Commission should be doing that convening and bringing those experts together to say, what are the standards when we build these things so that they don't catch on fire. However, the reality is, even with the new configuration, as we saw at PG&E, that was the new configuration of batteries, they can still catch on fire, they can still burn out of control, and water still cannot be used to put them out. And then you have the cleanup to deal with.
Yes.
And there was just information shared today that this cleanup, I had been told months, this cleanup could take years at this site. And when I think about the sensitive areas right next to this site and how long this cleanup is going to take and where that toxic material is going to go and how it's going to be transported and where it's going to be disposed, I come back to, again, we need to be really careful and thoughtful about where we put these projects, because when they go wrong, they go really, really, really wrong. And we still do need battery energy storage, and it's why I say we have to do both things at once. We have to be able to move our climate goals forward. We have to decarbonize. We have to address the climate crisis we're in, because people all across Santa Cruz are living through the climate crisis, whether it was the CZU fire or the 2023 floods, but we have to do it in a way that keeps our communities safe and allows communities to engage in the process.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Do you think lithium technology has a place in this industrial application?
Well, I think, lithium-ion battery technology is a piece of the puzzle, and we need to move with urgency, but we need to do it safely. There are other technologies in the works, They're not widely spread used at this time, and I think the jury is out on which is going to end up being the best technology. But I think if we have a three-pronged approach where we have the right regulations in place, where local communities can decide if they want this or not, and if they do, where they want to put these, then we're going to be in a much better situation to move forward the things that are really important to all of us, which is, not to have such extreme heat, to be able to, move into a future where we reduce the impact on the climate so that we don't, go over that tipping point.
Yeah. Do you plan to have any town hall meetings here in the near future about this issue?
I have been boots on the ground numerous times, and I'm in the northern part of the district. The district, I don't know if listeners know this, so this district is 200 miles long.
It is huge.
20% of California's coastline, from 7th Ave in the north and Santa Cruz to the southern San Luis Obispo County line in the south. And then on top of that, I live in Morro Bay, and most weeks I drive to Sacramento. So I drive 9 to 10 hours round trip every week just to get to work and back. So a full work day for me is just my commute in and of itself. And so I try to meet with constituents as much as I possibly can. I was part of the information forum in Moss Landing last year, talking about battery energy storage safety. There was a very large group of people there, so I'm always happy to meet with constituents. It's just about when and where and how I can, fit it all in when I have such a large, vast territory that I represent, which is why I was so glad that you invited me on the podcast, because, we definitely want to be talking to as many people as possible and engaging with as many people as possible during this important process.
That's why I like town hall meetings, hybrid, that allow in-person and remote participation, because I think you do reach a big audience that way. And I would encourage you to call one at your earliest convenience on this issue. It is troubling, as you know, having heard from many constituents in the Never Again Moss Landing group, but locally, Santa Cruz County has a Stop Lithium Battery Storage Projects, and another group called Safe Clean Energy for California that is also asking for a moratorium on lithium battery energy storage system. So you've got a big part of your constituency here that are eager for someone to listen, and you seem very proactive. What you've done is brave. I've heard criticism of AB 303, but you are taking the action that needs to be taken to bring back this issue to the people, to the local control, and I really want to thank you. But I would encourage you to call a town hall meeting soon.
Well, and I want to thank, all those folks that are raising their voices right now. I had somebody the other day who was, just very, very concerned about what to do and how do we do it and how do we be effective. And, was saying it takes all of us, right? It takes me working at the state legislative level. It takes local electeds speaking up at their level, and it takes everyday people saying what they want to experience and see in their own communities and not letting up. We all need to work in tandem, and it's one of the things when I got elected to the state legislature, I always said, I'm here to represent and uplift the voice of the Central Coast, in a new and fresh way, and we're trying to do it in a bold way that I think the people really want us to do. And like I said, I've heard from, hundreds of people, probably thousands at this point, from across the entire state of California. It is my job also to represent every person in California, not just my district, and I take that seriously. And so
Thank you.
We're hearing from people, up and down California who share the same kinds of concerns that you're speaking of. And so, but it takes all of us at every level to be able to do that and to, start to work in tandem. Somebody said to me the other day, like, well, I think, most of what's happening is simply because Moss Landing caught on fire. And I had to remind them, I don't think so, because Moss Landing had already caught on fire.
Yes.
And the world was silent. But this fire, we have been able to make momentum from. And I do think part of that is because of the legislation that we, have really said, there's a way to tackle this legislatively that can be effective, that can get at all of our goals at once, that can keep battery energy storage moving, which we need, so that we can address the climate crisis, but can do it in a really smart and thoughtful way that allows local community voice to continue to be part of the process, or to sort of be restored back into the process.
Yes, thank you. Do we know yet what caused the Moss Landing fire in January?
No, and it's frustratingly slow. I share the frustration of many constituents that, the investigation is supposed to take months. So we are waiting for that investigation to happen. I will say one of the other bills that I'm carrying in the meantime while all of this is happening is a bill on environmental health monitors. So people who go out there and do the environmental health monitoring that we've been talking about, because what we heard from our health departments is that they just don't have enough personnel. They're called registered environmental health specialists. That bill is AB 1288, so that we can enhance the effectiveness of environmental health specialists in public health overall. And so I'm also the chair of the health budget subcommittee. So what that means is I manage the health portion of California's budget, which is very, very large, $193 billion for Medi-Cal alone, and then some other programs wrapped in there. And so really understand the importance of looking at health impacts, but making sure we have the right workforce in place. So while the investigation is taking place and we are doing the AB 303 legislation to try to keep community voice, get community voice back in the process and have appropriate siting, we're also working to staff up our county health departments with these environmental health specialists.
Yes, I've heard that is an issue. And the other issue that came around that, apparent in the Moss Landing fire, was that local health officials' labs are not equipped to do the testing necessary for these heavy metals and things that, what are your thoughts on requiring that the developers of these facilities to provide that equipment and training for the local health staffing?
Well, and that's one of the reasons that we would want to keep local permitting processes in place, so that local entities could require that as a condition of permitting.
Exactly.
And it's something that has been talked about in terms of on the fire side and the emergency side as well. Is as part of the permitting process, do you require that the company, beefs up your fire department or your your health monitoring equipment or your health department personnel, right? All of these things can and should be part of a permitting process, conversation and negotiation at a local level. Unfortunately, in bypassing locals and going straight to the CEC, you don't really have that same kind of a process.
That's right.
So it's not, when I say community voice, I don't mean just community opinions and thoughts and feelings about things. While those are very important, what I also mean is the ability through a permitting process to put requirements into a permit that are going to help a community be safe should a disaster like this happen. And to say to companies, and this is where this project should be cited. We don't want to have loopholes for developers to get off so easy just because we feel like we need to go faster. We need to do both, have the proper requirements, and it's local communities that know what they need, right? It's local communities that know if their fire department has enough personnel and equipment or not. It's local communities that know, do they have enough environmental health specialists or not?
Exactly. What the resources of the area are and where those sensitive receptors truly are. It's difficult. It's troubling to me to see this project that has been submitted for permit in Santa Cruz County. It's called the Seahawk, 90 Minto Road in Watsonville, near a very densely populated area, some an affordable housing complex next to it. Those were not even mentioned in the sensitive receptor report that was submitted to the county. So those are troubling things that these developers do, and I really want to applaud you for making sure that the local government is the one in charge making the decisions. I'm hopeful that they will. So,
and there's, I'll just make a quick comment on that. One of the reasons that I knew that, considering neighbors is important is when I was at Moss Landing that Friday, one of the things that I did was visit the evacuation center. And there were children there, there were adults there, there were pets there. And I really want to commend the Red Cross that stood up that facility so quickly, and the care that was so evident in the folks that were volunteering there. And I want to say that folks who end up in an evacuation center end up there because they have nowhere else to go.
Right.
They cannot afford a hotel. They cannot afford to leave town. They do not have other family members that can take them in. And so it is the most underserved part of our community that ends up in evacuation centers. And thank goodness we have a system that still supports evacuation centers. But, seeing that up close in person really hit it home for me, how devastating this can be to homeowners, to renters, to entire neighborhoods. And can you imagine what this can do to property values?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of considerations here, and it's one of the reasons that we put those setbacks, from homes and schools, is having gone to that evacuation center.
Thank you very much. Assemblymember Dawn Addis, thank you for joining us today on Community Matters. You have 30 seconds. I'll give you the floor, and thank you so much for being here today.
Well, it's wonderful to chat with you. I know there's a lot of concern in the community. We are trying to uplift those concerns and work with legislators across the state of California to understand what the people need when it comes to climate action, and what they need is a very thoughtful process that, pays attention to regulation, appropriate siting, local community needs. And I think we can walk and chew gum all at the same time. We can move forward our climate goals, and we can do it in a way that really takes into account what's needed at the local level, and appreciate all the people that are speaking up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're off the air now. I just want to thank you very much again for joining us today and for your good work. We'll support you.
Absolutely.
And
I'll talk to you soon.
okay, thank you very much. Goodbye for now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's warmer in here than outside. Is it just the computers in a small space?
It's all this hot stuff that goes on.
Yeah.